Okay, so we talk about the cell references, the relative one and the absolute one. So you know about the relative cell references now. So relative cell references means when you have a particular equation and when you are copying it to somewhere else, it's going to copy like according to the place, or like it's going to change according to the place. It's going to change its reference according to the place that you are going to paste. Right? So I'll tell you a small, I'll show you a small example very quickly. All right? So if we take, let me take the sheet 3 for that. It's like if I write something like this, equals F10 plus V15, I get H15, right? So if I copy this to any particular place, when I'm copying it along the column, it's going to change the row headers. So like when I'm copying it upwards of a column, it's going to reduce the row header. 10 becomes 9 and 8 over here. 15 becomes 12 and I'm sorry, 14 and 13 over here. And if you are copying it to the downwards of a column, it's going to increase the row header. So 10 becomes 11 and 12 over here. This 15 becomes 16 and 17 over here. And again, we know that the column headers are not going to change since it is the same column. But the story differs when we are talking about copying the things on a same row. If I copy it over here, that means to my left, your column header is going to reduce. No changes is done for the row headers. So F becomes E over here and H becomes G over here. And I copy it to this particular cell. That means 2 cells to my right hand side. So F will become G and H. H will become I and J over here. And no changes has done or no changes have happened for the row headers, right? Which means the number. And if I copy it somewhere over here, it's going to change both the rows and the columns, because column wise I have moved just one column to my right. Row wise, I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows upwards. So if I paste it over here, it's going to change like this, right? So this is what we talk about as relative cell references. So I think you have a very good idea about the relative cell references, and we have done very nice diagrams regarding that as well, right? So today we are going to talk about the absolute cell references. Absolute in the sense, like I said last week, we are trying to copy a formula without changing these references relatively, right? So that means when we are going to copy it to some particular place, we need to keep our formula as it is. And when it comes to the absolute cell references, I'll clear these things out. So I'll take a small example over here, just a small reference, like equals, let's say R15, right? So I got this equation called equals R15. So it's going to show the content of the R15 cell on this F5 cell. My active cell is F5. So it's going to take or copy the content of the R15 cell over here. That's the meaning of this, this particular formula. So if I copy it and if I paste it at the top as well as the bottom, to my left, and to my right. Very adjacent cells. You know that it's going to change accordingly. That means relatively. So if I want to make this formula not changing when it is being copied, I can use absolute cell reference method to make that happen. So when I'm doing my absolute cell reference, I have to be very careful, because the first thing that I have to remember, or like that I have to realize, is when I'm copying a particular formula to some particular place, it changes. It is possible to change two different things inside the formula, or like inside a reference. So in simple terms, since this has R15, R is the column header, 15 is the row header. And when I'm copying it to any particular place in this Excel sheet, there is a possibility to change the row header as well as the column header relatively. So if I need to keep the exact reference as it is, so we have to address these components, which is the row header and the column header, separately, right? එතකොට අපි R කියන කෙනාව change නොවෙන්න ඕන දේ කරන්නත් ඕනේ. 15 නොවෙන කියන කෙනාව change නොවෙන්න අවශ්‍ය දේ කරන්නත් ඕනේ. Like it's for us to decide whether we need to keep both the reference unchanged, or are we just keeping just one thing to not to change and let other thing to change, right? So first you have to realize there is a column header, in this case R, a row header, in this case 15. So first I'm going to show you how to do the row absolute cell references. So it's a simple thing that we have to do. The only thing that we have to do is, if we do not need to change a particular component, let's take as an example, let's take, I don't need to change 15 when I'm copying this formula to any particular cell. I need to have 15 as 15 in everywhere when I'm copying. So 15 means row header. So what I'm going to do is, since I have the need of not changing this 15 in anywhere, I am going to insert a dollar mark, or the dollar symbol, to the left side of the row header. Right? So what are we going to do? We are going to add, or we are going to insert a dollar symbol at the left side of the component that we do not need to change. So in this case, I'm not going to, I need to be 15 unchanged in any place. So I place a dollar mark at the left side of the 15. Is this clear, people?
Yes, sir.
Right. So let's see what's happened when we are going to copy this and paste it. Right? So here I'm copying it, and I'm going to paste it to this particular cell. That means I'm going to paste it on the same column upwards. So generally, when I'm pasting it same column upwards, my row header supposed to reduce if it is a relative one. But since I have absolute that thing, look what happens. Look at that. It copies as $15. And it doesn't matter how far that I'm going to copy this. ටිකක් තිබ්බම ටිකක් තිබුණා චුට්ටක් උණ බලමු පොඩ්ඩක් මේ බෙහෙත් ටික දීපු නිසා බෙහෙත් ටිකට පුළුවන් ලොකු රසයක් නැහැ අනේ මේ හිමීට ඇවිල්ලා මේ පොඩ්ඩක් චෙක් කරලා බලන්න right? So it doesn't matter how far we are going to paste this down or upwards. Now the 15 is not going to change. Why? Because we have absolute our row header. And anyway, if I copy it along a row, naturally or like by default, the row header is not going to change since it is the same row. All right. So what happens when I copy this to my left-hand side? It becomes Q$15. Why R has become Q? I haven't said, or I haven't illustrated, or I haven't insert any dollar sign at the left of the R in this formula. So that means R is there to change relatively. So if I copy it to my left-hand side, it's going to be Q15. If I copy it further to my left, Q is going to reduce as P. And at the same way, if I copy to my right, R will become S. If I copy it further, S will become T. Right? So it is because we haven't said column header to be absolute. So column header changes. But this does not change the row header at any place. Look at this. I can copy it in anywhere. So my column headers will get changed, but not the fact of 15, right? It is 15 in everywhere. $15 stays as it is in everywhere. Are we clear with this, people?
Yes, clear, sir.
Right, great. So what you have to remember is if we need to absolute something, we have to put a dollar sign at the left side of the specific component. If we need to absolute the row, we put a dollar sign at the left side of the row. If we want to absolute the column, we can put a dollar sign at the left side of the column. If we want to absolute both the components, we can put a dollar sign at the left side of the row header as well as another dollar sign at the left side of the column header, right? So it will go the same way, right? So let me show you quickly what happens when the column absolute cell reference is given. So here I have insert $15. So now it is column is being absoluted. That means I have placed a dollar sign at the left side of the column header. Now what happens? If I copy this to the upper cell, it's going to reduce the number. Now the number is not being absoluted, or the row header is not being absoluted. And if I copy it to my downwards, it changes because now no one has said the row header to be absolute. And we know in experience, when we copy it to our left-hand side, in relative cell reference, column header should be changed. But since we have used a dollar sign here, column header is not going to change. That means $R, the part $R, going to remain as it is anywhere in this Excel sheet when we are copying it, right? So if I copy it further, still the $R stays as it is. If I copy it to my right, still $R is going to stay as it is. And here why the 15 is not changed? Because since it is the same row header is not going to change. Right? So if I copy this over here, $R is going to be stay as it is, and 15 is going to change accordingly. Right? Because now the row header is not absoluted. So you can see, you can copy it to anywhere. $R stays constantly or like absolutely. Right? So that is the way that we are going to apply the column absolute cell reference. Earlier we discussed about the row absolute cell reference. This is what we call the column absolute cell reference. I think now you can understand how both column and row absolute cell reference can be applied. So simple as that. Like you can simply say, put the $sign at the left side of both the components. So we have $R, which absolutes the column header. We have $15, which absolutes the row header. And beauty of this is never going to change in any component whenever you are going to paste it, right? So I'll paste it anywhere I want. I'll paste it upwards. It's going to be the same. I'm sorry. It's going to be the same. I paste it downwards. It's going to be the same. I paste it to my left. It's going to be the same. Exactly same thing. I'm pasting it to right. Exactly the same thing. I paste it over here by copying this. The very same thing. Copy it over here. Exactly same thing. So nothing is going to change because we have absoluted both the column headers as well as the row headers. People, are we clear about this thing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right, great. So there are three types of absolution that we can do for a cell, which is we can absolute a column, we can absolute a row, as well as we can absolute both column and row, right? Okay, so since we have discussed this, let's take this down. I think we have write about the row absolute cell reference last week, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. So let's continue from that point onwards. So let me take you to that point.
So we wrote until example $1 plus $1.
That's great. Okay, let me see. Yes, okay. We talk about the relative. We talk about the row absolute cell reference. Yes. So you wrote it until this point, right? This was the example that you were copying down. Right. So after this, there's a small diagram for you to draw. I'll show it to you so you can copy it down. Yeah. So you may copy this down. This shows you how the row absolute cell reference work. All right. So as you can see, I have it has two terms, which is J10 and E17. I'm sorry, the blue color one, K10 and F17. You can see like whenever we copy it to anywhere else, 10 and 17 is not going to change because those are being absolute. K and F is going to change accordingly, right? So draw this with the cells people, right? Cells තියනවා කියලා පෙන්න ගන්න. You don't need to name what are these cells and what are these rows. So don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. What matters only is like how these things are going to change and what are the components that are not going to change. All right. Okay. Take this down and let me know when you are done. Right.
Done, sir.
Okay, one is done. How about others? Anyone who is still writing?
Done, sir.
All right. So we are moving to the next topic, which is the column absolute cell reference. So you can write this column absolute cell reference. And you can copy this down. For the example, you can copy this. Yes, people, are we done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, anyone who is still writing? Okay, okay. Right, so seems everyone is done. If you are still writing, you can do a raise hand, right? Okay, so I'm showing you the diagram for this, like you had a one earlier. So yeah, this is the column absolute cell reference diagram. So you can copy it down. So you can see the dollar sign is at the left side of the column header, right? And it is being copied from this blue color cell to the other places, right? So have it and let me know when you are done.
Done, sir.
All right, one is done. Anyone who is still writing? All right, so let's go to the final part, which is row and column absolute cell reference. So yes, copy these things. And there you go, the example.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Dua.
Sir, shouldn't there be a dollar sign in front of A in the example?
Yeah, Dua, what they are trying to show is like the difference between the row and column absolute cell reference as well as the row absolute cell reference. So here, like you can identify like $1 is a row absolute cell reference, $B1 is the column absolute cell reference one. Right? You can use it in a mixed manner as you want. No worries.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Right, okay.
Done, sir.
Right. Anyone who is still writing this? All right. So now you have a small exercise which we can show the absolute cell references, how they are being copied, right? So let me show you the exercise over here. Yeah, there you go. So you can write the question like this. I will read you the question, so you may write it as a question. Yeah, let's say it like this. Determine the formulas, determine the formulas which are going to display on the following spreadsheet,
Sir, can you say it again?
Yeah. Determine the formulas which are going to be displayed on the following spreadsheet, once they are copied to colored cells. People, it should be once it is copied, once, not once there. Once it is copied to colored cells. These are going to be the colored cells. So if you don't have the colors, you just mark the boundary, or like, you know how to do it, right? So what you are going to draw is this. I will take a screenshot and show it to you, so it will be much easier, right? Yeah, this is sufficient for you to draw. Right now in this formula, it has all three references, right? That means the absolute cell reference in all three manner. All right, how I'm going to get rid of this thing?
So I think you have to click on it again. Just click.
No, it's not taken away. Not the protector. Oh my god. How come? Escape. Come on. It's not going to give me. Anyway, I'll move it to the downside, right? So like you can copy it down. So copy it down, people, and do your calculation, like not the calculation, do the logical part and see how it's going to happen. So let me know when you are done, people. All right, one is done. How about others?
Done, sir.
Okay. Anyone who is still trying? All right, so I'm going to show you the solutions. So what I can do is I can simply copy this and paste in the places. So it will show me the answer. So here it goes. You can correct it, right? So I'll make the colors as it is. There you go. No, it had the yellow color, right? So yes, the orange one is going to be like this. And the gray one is going to be like this. And finally, the purple one. It's going to be like this. To see whether you got everything correct. Yeah, who got everything correct? Ah, okay, that's good. Uh-huh, okay. All right, there are 3. Others, if you've done any mistakes, it's time for you to do the corrections. Then we can proceed. I'll give you a minute or 2 for you to do the corrections. Then I'm going to proceed with the other parts in the Excel, right? Okay, I think everyone has done this very well. So if you got any small mistakes, learn the mistakes that you have done, right? So then you won't be you will not do it again, right? If you learn the mistake. So now we are going to move to the rest of the Excel. So before we move further, let's check whether we got everything in the Excel so far. So yes, let me check. Yeah. So yes, we write about the example of electronic spreadsheets. We talk about the interfaces, and we talk about the tools. And yeah, we talk about what is a worksheet and what is a workbook. And we talk about the row headers and column headers and about the active cell as well. And we copy this thing, the where they are going to move around the Excel sheet. And we talk about what the cell address is and the ranges as well. And then we did that activity, and we talk about three different data that we can find, which is label, values, and formulas. And we talk about the operators that we use to write the formulas. And we did these exercises. And then we talk about the cell references, like the relative cell reference and the absolute cell reference, and we are done with that. People, did we went with this activity? The activity is on page number 204. Just check, people.
No, sir.
We didn't, right? Okay, so today you are going to have a small homework, right? So keep this as a homework. So please mark it, page number 204. So this is the question, and what they're asking is for you to fill this result, right? And in these formulas, you will find some cell addresses which contains no values. So if a cell address does not contain any value, it represents 0. Remember that. You may need that thing when you are solving some formulas, right? So mark it as a homework, page number 204. Next week, I'll show you the answers. So it's better you try to figure it out manually, right? Before you try to enter it in the Excel, right? So because in the examination, you have to do it by your own manually. So first, try it manually, try to take the result manually. Then you can have this Excel sheet and have these formulas copied to the Excel sheet and see what's the answer is going to be. So you can check by yourself. But anyway, I'm going to show you the answers. In case if I forgot to show it, just remind me. All right. So now I'm going to take you to a new section called the functions. Right. So we are going to learn about the functions, and functions comes under the category of formulas. So far, we have wrote the formulas with the help of cell references and the operators. So if you want to add something, we use the plus operator. If you want to take the do some subtractions, we use the subtraction operator. For multiplication, the star. For division, the backslash, right? So likewise, we had learned several different operators to perform a particular calculation on the Excel sheet. And I think you can remember, we have done a nice exercise in this Excel sheet. Yes, where we have calculate the totals for particular students and the average mark. So the our formulas were like this, right? So to find the average, it was like this. And people, we didn't went on this particular things, right? Like we didn't write any formula to find the maximum maths mark. We didn't write a formula to find the minimum science mark. For average, of course, we can take it from here. But specifically when it comes to these two, we haven't written anything, right? So like if I ask you to find the maximum maths mark from this column, there is, we can't write a formula to find the maths mark, right? So what we have to do is we have to analyze this column manually. Then we have to figure out what's the maximum one, and then we have to put that particular value over here, right? So since we got only 3 marks, we can figure out, okay, 90 is the maximum max mark, so we can type 90 over here. And the minimum of science mark, we can figure out, okay, 40 is the minimum science mark, so we can type it over here. Now, think about a practical situation. Think about that you are having like 40 to 50 number of marks on an Excel sheet, and you are given the chance, or you are given the task to find the maximum mark out of that data, out of that maths column. So it will be a little bit harder for you to write, because you have to go through 30 to 40 values. So it will consume time anyway, as well as sometimes you can find some similar values. So you may have to like go through again to confirm whether it is okay, that whether the answer that you have provided is correct or not. All right. So it consumes time, as well as it will give you some uncertainty when the number of marks are grow in number, right? So like out of 50 marks, 50 number of marks, it will be a little hard. And again, if you are given a list like having 100 number of marks, it will be much harder, right? And again, like when you are asked to have the total of a particular student, you can write this formula to find the total. It's easy. And think about a situation where that a particular student is facing for like 10 to 15 subjects. And if you are going to have the total, so you have to write this particular formula manually in a bigger way using this plus and minus values. So you have to say like E5 plus F5 plus G5 plus H5 plus, likewise. You have to continue for like 10 to 15 with 10 to 15 cell references. And if it's going to be bigger in number, again, it's going to give you some practical hardness, because you have to type it each and everything by yourself. So in like in simple, when the reference range is big, formula is not a good thing to use. Like not that it is not good, it's something a little bit hard thing to use, because you have a lot of work to do. So this work can be simplified very easily using the functions. So that is why the functions are there. So you can use a function and you can minimize a very big formula into a very small function and have the same value, the same output, as well as it will save the time. And it will make the task very easy when you know what kind of a formula that you are going to use. And in the point of formula, if you want to find how much, like how many formulas are there in Excel, there are lots of formulas in the Excel. So you can experience those by visiting to the formula tab. So in the formula tab, all these categories represents the formulas. And if you click on this insert function, all these categories represents the functions. If you click on this insert function button, you will be getting this small window showing you some number of formulas over here. So like you will see like a very short list over here, because those are the things that I have used recently in my Excel sheet. So I can change the category to all over here, which will show you the list of formulas that you have in Excel. It's a huge list, people, right? And Excel, this particular window is providing you a small help regarding this particular function that we have selected. Now, here I have selected the function called ABS, and underneath it, it's just describes what ABS is. So it says return the absolute value of a number without its sign. So it's kind of a rough idea for you to have, okay, this function is capable of performing this task. And if you want to learn it further, you can surf it in the internet, and there are lots of examples for you to learn how a particular function is functioning. In our syllabus, we are not provided to learn a lot regarding the function, but they have showed us some specific functions which list under this sigma symbol. So the sum, average, count numbers, max, and min. Those are the 5 functions that we need to learn through our syllabus. So you really don't need an introduction regarding these functions. Just by the name, it will give you the idea what that function is capable of. So like sum is there to sum up some values, and average is there to calculate the average. Count, it will count the values. I'll show you there's a specialty regarding the count function. I'll show you when we are performing that. And max and min will solve the problems over here. We can find the maximum value and the minimum value with the help of this max and min functions, right? So what you have to remember first regarding the functions is like function is there to ease up our work. So it will help us to save time and do a lot of work within the given time for us. And when it comes to the functions and formulas, there is a very nice similarity in between those two. Each of these things are starting with the equal sign. It doesn't matter whether it is a function or a formula that you are going to write or an equation that you are going to write. Both of them are starting with an equal sign. And the major difference is function has a name. Now, as we displayed over here, it has a particular name. But when it comes to the formulas or the equations, they don't have a name. We have to use the cell references. We have to use the operators. Then we have to build our own formula to have the output that we want. But when we are using a function, we can use the equal sign and we can just type the function name that we are going to use. Or we can choose the function that we want from here, as well as all these things shows you the functions. And the formula tab is not the only tab that you can access the functions. You can go to the home tab. Even in the home tab, you can find the sigma symbol over here. So if you click on that, you can have the 5 specific functions that we are going to learn through here as well. So if you choose a particular function name from there, so it will insert that function to your active cell. So if I select this and go here and add the sum, so it will show me the sum function. So it has some automations. So Excel thinks when you use a particular function, okay, this is what he's going to do, and he pops up with the automatic cell range. But some function is generally like this. So we use equal sign and the name of the function, and it has 2 brackets regarding the function, which shows you the limit or the limitation of the function, from where it is starting and from where it ends. Okay, people, is it clear up to this point? The format of a function, it has an equal sign, the name, and the brackets. Are we clear with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right, great. Now we are going to learn how to use the functions, right? So to do that, I'm going to move to my next sheet, and I'm going to clean these things out, right? So yeah. So like to take the total marks, earlier we use the formula, right? Or the equation saying equals what? E5 plus F5 plus G5, right? That gives us the total mark 200. Now, what we are going to use is the sum function. Sum function is capable of adding up the numbers, some particular numbers. So how we are going to use this function? You can write the function name and you can start, or you can open the bracket. Then inside these brackets, you are not going to use the operators because the task of the operators are done by the function itself. Since the function name is sum, it is there to do a addition, right? So we don't need to indicate by putting plus signs inside it. In fact, it is wrong, right? So instead of that, what we are going to do is, since this function has its specific task, we are going to specify using which cell addresses that this function is going to perform that task. So in simple terms, if we want to have a sum, what are the cell addresses that we need to have that sum? So in our case, we have to have the sum of 90, 40, and 70, which are the Savin's marks. So we can simply say E5, comma, F5, comma, and G5. So I name the cells, I refer the cells by their cell addresses separated by a comma. And I can close the bracket and press enter. It will give us the same value. And again, you may have in the doubts, like, even though we are not using the operators in here, still we are writing these cell addresses individual. So like, it's almost the same, right? If there is 100 cell addresses, do we need to write all 100 cell addresses over here? No, we don't. We can use cell range. Can you remember the cell range? The one we have practiced on the very first day when we're talking about the Excel. We can express a cell range if the cell addresses are staying together, right? So I'll show you the things. I go to the formula and take the show formula thing so we can see what we are typing. So here in this cell, you have sum E5 plus F5 plus G5. So underneath it, I'm going to write the same function using a cell range. Look at this, equal sum. So you can choose the function from this list. I can, and then you can press the tab key. So it will automatically put the rest of the function name and put the bracket for you. And then you can give the sum as a range. Let's say you are going to have the sum of these marks, which is in the next line, 60, 85, and 65. So that range starts from E6. So I give E6. And then I am going to put a colon. And then I'm going to specify the very last cell of that range, which is G6. See, now it highlights the range. And now I can close the bracket and I can press enter. So this gives the same idea of adding the values in these three cells. People, did you got that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, everyone, is that clear?
Clear, sir.
Right, great. Yes, okay. And Now think about a situation that I need to have the sum of the cells that I have highlighted in yellow over here. I'm going to have the sum of these three cells. Let's say over here on the H9 cell. How I can use the sum function? Who can tell? Yes, you can type in the function. How we are going to type the function? Yes, give me a suggestion. Give me a suggestion. Yes, the values in these yellow color cells. I need to have it using the sum function. So how it's going to be? Okay, Sanushi. Yes, very good. That's the way. Since these three things are in three separate places, let's say I'm going to take the total over here. So if I use equal sum and if I say E5 colon G7, it's going to mark the entire cell range. Can you see that? Entire thing. So if you want to have the total of entire marks, we can have that. But in this case, I need only the total of these yellow colored cells. So because of that, we can't use the cell range. We have to use individual cell addresses. So E5, F6, comma, G7. So you can see these three cells are now being selected. So you can close the bracket and press enter to have the addition. So here, since we are showing the formulas, it won't show you the total. So once we like take out the show formula stuff, yeah, there you go. So this is the one that we use to take the addition of these yellow colored cells. Right. Now, if we want to take the addition of this range as well as this range, how should it be? What should be the formula? I need the total of those 6 cells that I have highlighted over here. The total of maths marks as well as total of ICT marks, like all together, maths and ICT. How can I write it?
Sir, max equal max brackets.
Equal, it's not going to be the maths.
Sorry, mean. Sorry, mean.
No, oh, hold on. I'm not talking about the minimum mark or the maximum mark reason. I'm still referring to the total marks of all 3 maths marks and all 3 ICT marks.
Sir, I got it. Sum.
Then it should be sum, right? Yes, equal sum.
Sum and E5 and
E5
and G7.
Yeah, E5 colon should be there. Colon
G7.
G7. There's going to be a problem if you put G7 reason, because it includes the science mark as well. I don't need the total of the science mark. I need only total of maths and ICT.
Sir, then E5 and G5.
You can say, you can give a one range like this, E5 colon E7. That will quote the maths mark range. And since you need the ICT mark range as well, what we can do? We can put a comma and we can give the separate range again. Like how?
G5 colon G7.
That's right, G5 colon G7. So once you got this, you can see this blue color cells and red color cells, which are being highlighted in the maths, under the maths and ICT. So once you press enter, it gives us the total of these two cells, these two columns. Got that, people?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Sir.
Yes. Okay, Dilendya, that's the correct one that you have given. Okay, now one last question. I need to have the total of science marks with the ICT marks of Nehara. So all 3 marks of science plus ICT marks only of Nehara. How we are going to write the formula? Yes, what should be the formula? The addition of these 3 plus this 65.
Equal sum bracket
Equal sum
F5
bracket, okay. F5
colon F7
colon F7, okay.
comma
Comma G6. Very good, very good. Is this Dilendya?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that caught up the things. Yes, all 3 of the science and the 65, which is Nehara's, which gives us this 245. So people, what I need you to show is, now when you are giving the references, you can use any of these methods to give the reference. See, we can give it as a range of cells if they are staying together, like E6 colon G6. And we can give the random cells separated by a comma if they are like not staying together. And if we got 2 ranges or 3 ranges or more ranges, we can specify those sub ranges here and there like this. So we put a range, we put a command, we put the other range, and we can put a command, we can put another range if you want. As well as we can mix up the range as well as the single cell reference inside the values of a particular function. And this is, all these 4 methods can be used in any particular function, right? ඕනම function එකක මේ විදි 4ම පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. So regarding your task, your function name will get changed. The references can be given as we show over here. Yeah, Sanushi, yes, your answer is also correct, Dua. So like, how about these people? Are we clear with all these 4 things?
Yes, sir.
Right, great. So have this in your mind, people. We are going to write about the functions by next week, and there are few more functions for us to talk as well. So by next week, I'm going to discuss about other 4 functions, which is average, count, sum, and average, count, max, and min. Then we'll write about the functions with examples. And most probably by next week, we will be able to finish up the lesson, right? So get ready. So we are at the very end of the Excel lesson. So by next week, we will be able to finish this up. And don't forget the homework that I gave you, right? Complete it. I'm going to show you the answers by next week, so you can mark it as well. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to end the session from here just for today. And I'll see you on next week for the very same time. Okay, and good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Goodbye.